Lifestyle Pirates with Big J and Adriano.
Welcome, Spencer Martin. How are you today?
Very good, thank you. Thank you for inviting me here.
No worries. Always good to have a chat with you. Yes. So, Spencer, look, the reason we got you in here, we want to know a bit more about Spencer.
All right, well, it goes back a long way.
You got some time for us?
Yes, I have.
All right. So
Plenty of time, apparently.
Excellent. So, Spencer Martin, so you were a racing car driver for Scuderia Veloce Racing, and you had 2 Australian driver championships with them in 1966 and 1967.
Correct, yes.
Nice. So tell us, why'd you get into racing?
Well, I suppose I loved driving fast cars, and it goes way back. I was apprenticed to a guy who raced an MG, and we used to go to a place called Mount Druitt, which is west of Sydney, out from Parramatta, and I rode my bike out there. We always used to get around on bikes in those days.
Yeah.
And
push bikes or motorbikes?
Push bikes.
Yeah.
And so I'd ride my bike out to, at about 40 k's, out to watch my friend race. Sometimes I'd get a bus to Parramatta and get a steam train out to Mount Druitt. So that's going back a little bit. I know I don't look that old. But
You've just done your 30th birthday, haven't you?
That's right, yeah. I was born in 39, for those who can do the sums.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we used to go up to Mount Druitt, and I watched the guys up there driving their cars. In those days, they were mainly MG2Cs, and so they were all stripped down and supercharged and all sorts of things. So, and my friend was racing an MG at that time.
And what made them special for race cars back in the day?
Well, they were, I suppose, not a bad power to weight ratios. They weren't that fast. I mean, an MG in those days was flat out doing 70 mile an hour.
Right.
Down a hill?
Downhill with a tailwind.
Yeah, nice.
But I know they had them doing well over 100 mile an hour with superchargers and things on them. But half the fuel, well, more, it'd be 60% of the fuel were MGTCs.
Yeah, right.
So, and I watched those guys going around, and I thought, well, I thought I might be able to keep up with a few of them. So I got the bug.
Yeah. That's the one you built yourself?
Well, what happened is I had an MG2C, which is, really love my MG. But I bought a kit car, half completed, some guy had half built it up. And it was a space frame designed by Elva. It was built by Noda Engineering in Parramatta. And the frame was, and it had standard 10 or Triumph Herald mechanicals in it.
Yep.
And so it took me, well, I was working as a panel beater at the time, and I was getting 16 quid a week, I think it was, and I had to give Mum 4 quid a week, and I only had 10 or 12 quid a week to build a racing car and live on. So it took me 2 years to put the car together. And so my first race was in 1960 in my little car that I'd built.
Yeah.
How did that feel?
A great sense of achievement, really, especially when I got it on the track, and it really caught a few eyes. It was quick. Did over 100 mile an hour, 101. That's over 100, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Passes the test.
That's electronically timed. That's not bullshit looking at speedos.
The one that's waving up and down like that.
with a loose cable. No, that was electronically timed.
Yeah.
And so the first race I had was at Nublar in Orange in 1960. I started building the car in 58, so 60 was my first race. And so I got one very good memory, or a couple of memories of that first race. The first race, I was doing my 101 down the straight, and the D-type Jaguar went past me doing 150 mile an hour.
Wow.
And it nearly blew me off the road. It was going that fast, and I can still see that fading into the distance. It was so fast compared to what I was doing. And also another thing that happened on that particular meeting was my very good friend Brian McEwen. He had a Mark II Zephyr, and he dragged the trailer up to the, with my car on it, to the racetrack, and he raced his Mark II Zephyr as well, with the tow bar on and all. So the idea was what we were trying to do, to get our full competition licence, you had to do 3 meetings.
Yeah.
So Brian drove his Zephyr in an event, and actually his Zephyr broke down, so I went to the clerk of the course and I said, my friend's car's broken down, the next race is a 10-lapper, can we do 5 laps each so we can get our signatures? And he said, yeah, that'll be okay. So Brian and I got our licences signed, and we're very happy about all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So am I right in thinking you got into racing, you didn't have a role model, you just kind of almost fell into it, is that right?
I suppose you could say that, John. Yeah, I had friends, lots of friends who were interested in cars and going fast, but we used to speed around the town a little bit, you know. Yeah, that's right. I sort of fell into it a bit because the guy who I was apprenticed to, and I haven't told you this before, I was an apprentice watchmaker.
Watchmaker?
Yeah.
Nice. That's a bit of you, John.
There you go.
There you go. But I was only there for a short time, I think about 12 months, and
Why'd you leave so quickly? It just didn't tick?
Well...
Oh, jeez. Someone take a champagne away.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Yeah, you're on the case. Yeah. Anyway, so... No, I was a car mad. I was just car mad. I just wanted to get into cars, and I wanted to work in a garage on cars, so I left the watchmaking behind and went on to repairing motor cars. I was a panel beater. I got a job as a panel beater, yeah. And I had a couple of very good people, and I learnt the trade and became fairly efficient at that.
Yeah.
So I'm noticing a bit of a trend here. So you started off as a mechanic. Adriana, you're a mechanic. Are you wanting to be an aspiring race car driver as well?
Yeah, look, I don't think they make seats big enough anymore.
Right, okay.
So I just can't get in them.
No, I started off as a panel beater, and then I did mechanical work after that.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So maybe Adrian wants to go back to a panel beater.
Yeah, maybe. Could happen. But that's what it takes to get me behind the steering wheel of a race car, mate. I'm in.
Yeah.
So what was it like back then, coming up to your first race? Did you have a pit crew? Did you work on your own car in the garage? What was it sort of like? Well,
as I mentioned previously, it took me 2 years to build a car with the help of a few mates.
Yeah.
And I suppose, I had if you say a pit crew, it wasn't really an organised pit crew. It was 3 or 4 mates that used to come along with you, and they'd help you pump the tyres up and make sure that you're ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was there fuel stops in those races? Was there, how many laps were we talking?
No, we're only talking 10 lappers, and they were just sprint races.
Yeah. So going up to the starting line, what was the emotions that were going through you, like the first time that you actually went out and raced?
It doesn't matter. Every time you go to the start line, you're apprehensive about what you're going to do.
Yeah.
You have to have a plan in your head of what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And mine was always, I didn't want to come second.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I'm not coming to come second.
Yeah.
But anyway...
If you're not first, you're last.
That's right. You're the first of the losers.
So when you say what you're going to do, are you talking about diving into the corner first? Are you starting to think about your race line, or are you literally just visualising the win?
I know, you're just visualising getting a good start, not touching anybody else's car, because the starts are very hectic.
Yeah.
Everybody's really got the red mist and they're having a go.
Yeah.
And everybody's got their pedal to the metal.
Yeah.
And they all go, and it's a big race to the first corner.
Yeah.
And then it's a big who's going to outbrake one another.
Yeah.
And it's on. It's on.
And how many cars are we talking on the line here? So what's the pack look like?
Oh, the grids usually went 3-2, 3-2.
Yeah.
With a bit of space in between them, trying to keep the maniacs apart.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're all the same class?
No. In those days we had, in the very early days, we had up to 2 or 3 different classes in a race.
Yeah, because you said you were racing a D-type.
No, the D-type was in the race.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was in the top class. Obviously.
Yeah, racing against a D-type.
That was the one that screamed past him.
Yeah, I know. He was racing against a D-type, sorry.
I wasn't really racing against him. I was just observing how much quicker he was.
Yeah, they're the one with the big tail on the back, aren't they?
The headrest.
Yeah, they're lovely.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, good motor car. So tell me, how was safety like back then for motorsport?
Well,
Did you race with a seatbelt?
Oh, no seatbelts. No, it was. There was
Love
no,
how you just said that as a throwaway comment. No seatbelts.
Let's go back to that. That's a big one. So there was no sort of harness or anything holding you in?
Oh no. Well, the theory in the old days was that you had so much fuel in the cars, and people got burnt to death, so they were frightened of having a crash and the car catching on fire and you're trapped in it.
Yeah.
So the theory was you were better if you had a crash, you were thrown out of the motor car.
Yeah, logic.
But if you survived the throw out, you got away from the fire.
Yeah, I suppose.
So I almost feel like silly asking, were you wearing a helmet back in the day?
Oh yes, but they were. It was just you might as well have had a paper bag on your head. They were nothing.
Rain
really.
buckets.
And goggles?
Yes, goggles.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you had to have goggles. But the helmets weren't anything really. Really, they were just a matter of keeping your brains together after you hit a tree.
So that's like a real... I mean, the adrenaline must have just been pumping through your body when you're throwing yourself around these racetracks. Everyone else, there's no protection. You've got a piece of leather on your head.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like a survival instinct, right?
No, you don't think of it at all.
No?
No, you do not think of
So
survival
what do you
at
think?
all.
What do you think?
The win.
about?
Passing the bastard in front of you.
Right, okay.
That's all you think about.
Brilliant. Brilliant. How good's that though? Simple. Keeping it simple. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to come second.
No.
Yeah.
So you got to pass the bloke in front of you.
Yeah. So when you took the goggles off when you come back into pit lane, did you have like black soot around your
No,
eyes?
the races weren't long enough. For
Yeah.
that. No. And in those days we had drum brakes, so there wasn't a lot of soot around.
Yeah.
Although,
The hydrocarbons coming from the engine.
oh, right. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, you'd know all about those,
Yeah.
being a mechanic now.
Yeah, and working on classic cars.
Yeah.
Mate, you walk through there sometimes, it's like you're out in a bender. It's good.
Yeah, we were only talking earlier about carbon monoxide in cabins. Yeah.
So there's motorsport's come quite a long way when it comes to safety in terms of carbon monoxide poisoning. Now they've got carbon monoxide sensors fitted inside the vehicles. Because, when we spoke to Renato,
We were talking before.
he had carbon monoxide poisoning whilst doing Bathurst. And, can't remember the 2 laps before he came into the pits at all.
Spence was saying Mark Webber had the same thing.
Yeah, it's a big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark had carbon monoxide poisoning at Monaco when he was driving a Red Bull Formula 1 car.
Yeah, wow. Even that late?
Oh, no. I think it was when he's driving 3000, actually.
Yeah, okay.
Because he's going through the tunnel and it's like, 6 or 7 cars all stacked up. It was like a gas chamber. So he suffered, from poisoning. That was horrible.
So speaking of racetracks, you mentioned Monaco. What's your favourite racetrack?
Well, it's best that you never have a favourite racetrack. It's like,
Why do you say that?
well, do you like going around left-hand corners or do you like going around right-hand corners? You can't have a preference.
Yeah.
You can't have a preference for that or you can't have a preference for racetracks. They're all good, you're all going to have fun and you're all going to give it your best.
Yeah.
There are certainly some racetracks are far more challenging than others, like Spa in Belgium. That's one of the best tracks I've ever raced. But
That's definitely a bucket list.
yeah, well, I've been there and I raced there. And
Why does that stick out in your mind?
well, the fastest corner in Formula 1 is Eau Rouge.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of fun getting through there as quick as I could.
Remember the speed?
Oh, no.
Didn't have time to look down.
No, you haven't got a speedo, mate. You
Only
ain't-
revs. Do you have,
Yeah, it was 8,000 in fifth. No, I didn't know what it was, but you've only got a rev counter, and
so you mentioned earlier when we were talking, you raced Laguna Seca.
yes, I have.
So how's the corkscrew?
Everybody says, what about the corkscrew? And then the corkscrew's nothing really. I mean, the dipper at Bathurst is almost exactly the same.
Yeah?
Yeah. Oh,
Crazy.
Yeah, it's not, it's.
Yeah, well, you only
I mean,
got a little left and a right of the Laguna Secas, whereas you're coming down off the mountain, mate, you got quite a few big undulations and left, right, and then down Conrod.
Yeah. There's a lot more left rights, as you say, coming into the dipper at Bathurst than there is at Laguna. I mean, you got you come up to Laguna, you come up over the crest, and then you go left, right, and down through the bit of a dip. But it's, I don't know why, it's just like driving it.
Yeah.
It's not a problem.
I love it how you can still visualise the tracks, and you know, kind of gesticulating with your hands there. Did you walk the track before you raced back then?
No, I never, no.
So
no.
how did you prepare for a race?
My first race, when I went to Monaco, I put that up on the screen and had a look at it.
Yeah.
And, I watched that intently, and it was amazing how much it helped me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. That was a big help. When I raced, I raced Sterling Moss's C-Type Jaguar at Monaco.
Lovely.
Was he driving?
No, he was in the passenger seat. I was taking him for a drive.
He was panicking.
No.
Well, you got me there.
No. He drove the car at Le Mans.
Yeah.
And he came second to Hamilton, Duncan Hamilton, Adrian Hamilton actually, and so he had a little bit of trouble during the race, but so it was a very famous car, and I had the privilege of driving it at Monaco and Silverstone. Yeah.
What year are we talking in Monaco?
Now you've hit me with one. It would have been around about 96, 7.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And that still had the kind of glitz and glamour that you see nowadays?
Oh, yes. I know it was one of the best historic race meetings I've ever been to.
Yeah. What makes it so special?
Well, the historic meeting is 1 week before the Formula One cars run there.
It's on my bucket list, Spencer. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you won't be disappointed.
I hope not.
I know. And they have all the fireys and the flag marshals. Mm-hmm. It's all set up for the next week's Formula One race.
Yeah.
So it's full on.
Yeah.
And of course, when we were there, Princess Stephanie and Prince Albert, they were all there, and they all partake in it, and it's quite an event.
Oh, they drive round as well?
No. In the prize giving
Right,
in the
okay.
evening.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. It really is. It's amazing, really.
Yeah. Now I've got to ask, being from the UK, did you ever do Brands Hatch?
Never went to Brands.
No?
Silverstone only.
You did Silverstone?
Yeah, went a couple of times to Silverstone.
What's that like to thrash around?
Silverstone is really good.
Yeah?
I mean, it's a great test of driving. You got and a great test of cars because you got 2 long straights.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Yeah.
Silverstone is really good. I love driving at Silverstone.
Yeah.
So we're here at the Ferrari Concorso d'Eleganza, so we got to talk Ferrari at least once. So 250 LM, tell me all about it. How did you get the privilege to drive that around the track, and how was it?
David Mackay, who was he was the team manager or the owner of Scuderia Veloce, and he was well connected with the Ferrari Formula One team, and he was a passionate Ferrari enthusiast, and he ordered a 250 LM, and it took a couple of years before it was it never got homologated. So it came out, and I drove the car in its very first race, brand new 250 LM, and it really was a privilege. In fact, I was Graham Hill's mechanic in the Formula One Bradman at the same meeting, and when we got down to Sandown in 1965, Graham said to David, "I would like to drive the Ferrari too," and David said, No. The boy's going to be driving the Ferrari. So Graham Hill, he was the 1962 world champion, had to watch me drive the car and win its very first race.
Nice.
It was just a nice story.
Yeah. So what's it like to drive a 250 LM? That's one of my sort of poster cars, of the cars that I've always wished I could drive. I saw one in the Ferrari Classiche Museum, in the workshop, in Maranello when I was working there.
Yes.
So just seeing one of those in person was enough for me to be able to drive that car, and not only that, a brand new one with green tyres, stickers still on it, like the thing's brand new. That must have been.
Well, they weren't. When you say green tyres, everybody had the same tyres. Everybody had just Dunlop tyres, but race tyres, of course. But the car. What was it like to drive? Well, it didn't have a lot of horsepower. 320. 320, which, I mean, it wasn't competitive against, in a sports car class because Lolas and those sorts of things, they had 500 plus.
Yeah.
But in long distance races, it never lost a long distance race. It ran in 2 12 hours and 2 6 hours here in Australia, and it won them all. It was built as a endurance car, so it was heavy in the gearbox and heavy in the chassis because it had to be endure 24 hours. But it was a lovely, lovely car. At high speed, like 170, 180 mile an hour, it was like an arrow. It went straight. And the noise, like a V12, it was a screamer.
Yeah.
Behind there, you could hear the timing chains and the gears and everything screaming around. And at 8,000, it was just a total symphony of noise.
Yeah.
It was a big buzz.
Yeah. You get me all excited.
Well, I think Spencer's missing up as well.
Yeah.
Question, because why would, and this is a naive question, why would Ferrari make something that's perhaps not as quick as the Lolas in that same time?
It's different
time
category,
period?
different class.
No,
Different class
years,
of car.
Different
years, right?
Every year,
Sorry.
every year, race cars become obsolete.
Right.
And so you mentioned before about a GTO. Well, they won in their day.
Yep.
But the LM was a progression of the 250 LM was a progression of the GTO.
Yeah. Okay.
So every year the cars progressed.
Right. Okay.
Went to there, and then you went to the.
So why did they? Do you know why they changed the 250 GTO with the engine in the front to the back, other than weight distribution? Like it's completely different.
Oh well, Ferrari took a long while to change. He always said the horse pulls the cart, it doesn't push it. That was his explanation.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until the English manufacturers like Lotus and Cooper and things or especially Cooper went rear engine, and Ferrari weren't competitive. So they realised they had to go rear engine. And same with their sports cars and their GT cars, they went rear engine.
Yep.
Big advantages with rear engine.
So 250s, that's not the only 250 you've driven, isn't it?
Oh no, I drove a lot of 250 Testarossas. Pontoon and Tour de France, and also the best one we had was a 196S, which was an ex-Rodriguez car.
Oh yeah.
And the Rodriguez brothers, they ran it in the Targa, and they rolled it over and still finished in the race. But so it was a V6. It was a half a 12. It was a V6 gearbox up the front, whereas the TRs had the gearbox in the back. They were heavier cars. No, but the V6, we ended up, we could knock the V12s off in our little V6.
Yeah, wow. Just because of the weight difference? A bit more nimble?
Weight. So the car wasn't that quick when I got into it. We used to go to auto restorations in New Zealand, and they would restore our cars, the Ferraris. The cars were owned by Kerry Manolis.
Yeah.
And he was a Ferrari fanatic, I suppose you'd say. He owned a lot of Ferraris at different times. And so we used to go to auto restorations, and they would totally restore the car. And so I drove the car. We used to go to a place called Ropuna Park, which is a racetrack, not far from the workshop at Auto Restos, and it was in Christchurch in New Zealand. And we used to perfect the cars, and well, you'd appreciate this. The car had positive camber.
Oh, wow.
And they said, well, and most of those cars had positive camber in the early days.
That era did look a bit odd with the
Look at-
wheels out like that.
The old Bugattis had 3 degrees of positive camber.
Crazy.
And this thing had a good degree of positive camber on it, and I said, we've got to change it. And they said, well, there's no adjustment. There's no adjustment. I said, well, you get me a hacksaw and I'll show you what I'm going to do. And I said, oh, wow. And so I cut an inch out of the top tube, joining the top 2 wishbones across the chassis, cut an inch out, and we got a strap and pulled it in and tacked it and measured it. And all of a sudden we had 3/4 negative each side. And it was, we went to the racetrack the next day and it was a different car.
Yeah. Oh, it would be.
Different car.
Changing the geometry like that.
Yeah.
That'd be crazy.
Yeah. But
So-
I did all those. I did all those things with an early model Holden that I drove early. Yeah.
I was going to say, so people that may be tuning in that don't know what positive camber is and geometry, do you want to maybe explain that in
So if you're
in
looking at a
layman
tyre
terms?
side on, right, so you can see the tread.
Yep.
From the back to the front, the outside of the wheel tipping in.
Yep.
That's negative camber.
Yep.
Tipping out is positive camber.
Okay.
So the reason why you'd want negative camber on a race car is when you go around a corner, as the wheel turns, so does the tyre, right?
Yep.
So as you're turning it like that and you're putting load onto the opposing corner on the opposing side, the wheel actually goes flat when you got negative camber. If it's positive, it almost scrubs out and you get massive body rolls, scrub outside of the tyre, heats up too much.
Okay.
Oh, it's just not a
More,
good thing
more
to
to
do.
the point, it counteracts the tyre distortion when you go around the corner.
Yeah.
When you go around the corner, the tyre rolls under.
Yep.
So to keep as much tread or much of the contact patch on the road, you tip the wheel out a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that when it rolls over, you've got the contact patch on the road or more of it.
So were they happy with your
Is that too
hacksaw
technical?
performance?
I'm sorry.
No, that's
No,
good.
that's
Is
perfect.
that all right?
So were they happy the fact you took a hacksaw to the chassis?
Oh, no, Mr. Manolis was horrified. He said,
can
well,
imagine.
keep the piece you take out because you might have to go back.
Yeah.
So you were quite the icon of the sport in the 60s. 2 times Australian champion, success in touring cars and sports cars. Now, for the layman, what's the difference
Between a
Touring car and a sports
between
car?
the touring cars and the sports cars? So for people
Well, the
that
most
perhaps
obvious thing, a touring car has usually got 4 doors.
yep,
A sports car is like an open wheeler with mud guards on it.
Yeah.
To be crude.
so your sports car are your modern day V8s that you could buy off a dealer shop floor.
Oh, no,
That
they're
would
not
be-
sports cars.
yeah.
No, you're talking about V8 supercars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's entirely different.
Yep.
They're touring cars.
Okay.
Like they're 4 doors, or now
Yeah.
they've got Mustangs 2 doors.
Right. Okay.
So, no, well, I started off in old Holdens and I learnt my trade doing that. Holdens and then sports cars. Well, the little car that I told you I built, that was a sports car.
Yep.
To run in sports cars, the cars had to be road registerable.
Right.
So you had to have headlights, you had to have a horn, and you had to have a spare wheel, and all of that sort
Baby
of
seat in the back.
Yeah, baby seat.
Yeah.
Yeah. The pram in the boot.
Yeah.
So is it true you had to rock up to Bathurst with number plates on your car to race back in the day?
No, you didn't have to have number plates on it, but they were the things that you had to have, like lights, horn. Obviously, you couldn't have windscreen wipers, but there was a few things that the regulations stipulated you had to have.
You say obviously no windscreen wipers. Why no windscreen wipers?
Oh, well, the windscreens were usually only very low, and if it rained, you looked over the top of it.
So tell us. So I've had a few conversations with you before, and you
Yes.
told me about one incident where a mechanic forgot to change your brake pads.
You got a good memory, haven't you? Tell
us that
was
story.
totally confident. So we got to put this on camera now.
No,
All
it's
right,
only
so-
between us three. Don't worry about that.
So what happened was I was asked to drive a 350 Holden Monaro
Good car.
in a 6-hour race at Sandown Park, and this was Holden's first supercar. GM had always and Ford had an arrangement where they wouldn't race one another, so they used to do it sort of under the table. But anyway, this was Holden's first real V8
Is that
supercar.
HT or HK?
Well, it's either HT or HG. Some said
Yeah.
it was a HT, some said it was a HG.
All right.
Anyway, it was a HT, really. It was a 350. They had a heap of go.
Yeah.
350 Chev
Yeah.
motor, and hardly any brakes. Like, the rotors were about the size of 2 bob bits, really.
Scary.
Scary stuff. So I was driving with my old friend Kevin Bartlett. Mm-hmm. He was an Australian champion as well, and a very competitive bugger. we had plenty of on-track races, and anyway, I'm good mates with Kev, and so he raced in an event before this main event, and so the team manager, Harry Firth, said, well, you do the first 2 hours, and I said, okay. So about an hour into the race, the brake pedal went right to the floor. I could feel it getting a bit, funny, but I thought, I was just about hanging on to Alan Moffat. He was in a 351 Falcon, Phase 3 Falcon. I was just about holding him, but I was hanging it all out. I arrived at the end of the straight, 120 mile an hour, and the brake pedal went right to the floor. Nothing. So I pulled the handbrake on, and that did nothing. In fact, when you're looking death in the eyes, it's amazing the strength you've got. I pulled it right out of the dash.
Oh, wow.
There's one of those old umbrella ones.
Yeah.
So then I thought, well, I'm going straight for the fence. I'm not going to hit this head on. So I jammed it into third gear and swung it around and went into the fence backwards. And the muffler was driven right inside the petrol tank, which was still half full, and the whole thing exploded. It was a massive explosion. And I wasn't hurt, but I climbed out through. The doors are all jammed, of course, because of the body was absolutely jammed all up. And I climbed out through the driver's window, and the ambulance man took me around and said, well, you better come in and we check you out. And luckily the ambulance was right on that corner. And I said to the guy, I think you need to be looked at more than me. I'm okay. You've obviously got a big fright out of this. Yeah. So anyway, I sat in the ambulance to keep him happy.
And the car was a write-off?
Oh, mate.
Oh, total.
Done?
Well,
Save the engine.
Well, years later it was repaired.
Yeah.
And it was recently sold for a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
670,000 or something.
Did you get a little clip on that?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So talk about the money side of things.
You wanted me to tell you about why the brakes failed.
Yeah, of course.
So it was a bit of a mystery as to why the brake pedal went right to the floor. You have to investigate these things because some other poor bugger is going to get in and do the same thing. So, of course, I got the blame. They said, well, it's driver error because it's always the driver.
Of course.
Especially if it's a big car manufacturer project. So I got the blame for that, and about, I suppose it must be 20 years later, the head mechanic came to me and he said, Spencer, did you ever find out why you ran out of brakes? I said, no, I didn't find out. He said, I put the wrong brake pads in. He said, I put the standard brake pads in and you didn't have the competition hard brake pads in it. So
Right.
it was on his mind for a long time, but he told me.
How did that conversation go down?
Yeah.
Oh, well, he's a really nice bloke, and, people make mistakes. I mean, you can see it. People make mistakes.
Yeah. Being a mechanic myself, that's how you learn.
Well, that's exactly. That's how you learn.
Ideally, not in situations like that, but...
No. And when you learn like that, you never forget.
No, definitely not.
Never forget, no.
I'm sure you never forgot either. Talking about the money side of things, you actually had a relatively short career in the racing side. You were done in 10 years.
Yeah, about 10 years.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Because you were going to get married, but
Yep.
you were fiscally challenged as well. You weren't perhaps getting some cash that you thought you should have done, and you wanted to start a life with your wife.
Well, there's a long story there. I drove. When Dave Mackay gave me the drive of the Ferrari and the Formula One Brabham, he knew that I was so keen I would do it for nothing. In fact, I would have even paid him to let me into those cars. But anyway, I worked in the workshop during the day, and I prepared those two cars after work. And it was pretty hard going. But anyway, so there was no money in it. No money at all. In fact, there was a lot of work and very little financial reward at all. But it didn't matter. I was driving the fastest two cars in Australia.
Yeah.
Didn't matter.
Yeah.
I was just a
For the
speed
love.
freak and I loved
Yeah,
it. I really loved it. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. That's such a good message. Do what
Yeah.
you love. Love it.
I loved it, yeah, I did. And it was I mean, we had a lot of races in the Ferrari and I forgot, I think it was about 16 races and it only ever let me down once. It was broke a throttle cable.
Yeah.
Oh, mate, that's because you had it pinned.
I was pushing it to the floor too hard or too quick.
Almost went out for the floor pad.
Yeah,
Well done.
yeah,
Well done.
Yeah, that's it.
And so, what did you do after racing?
You're moving on a bit quick, mate.
Yeah, I know,
Is
eh?
this on the script? This is not on the script. Anyway, so after racing, so I saw some horrific accidents when I was racing. Timmy Mayer, Rocky Chassis, Lex Davison, and my flatmate Bevan Gibson, all killed in front of me. And I thought, and then Jim Clark got killed. And
Yeah.
everybody thought, well, Jim was the best driver in the world. And, if Jimmy got killed, everybody was on notice. You know, everybody knew that it could happen. It could happen. And I saw wives walk away from the racetrack without their man, and others walk away with their cripple man. And I thought, I don't really think that's fair on the girls. You know, we're having a big buzz, but they've got to take home the bits and pieces, or or go to the morgue and identify. So I didn't like that. I suppose the first fatality I saw was Timmy Mayer in 1964 at Longford, and that really, really hit me hard.
And that was only 4 years after beginning racing?
Oh, yes, but I'd moved on a lot in those 4 years.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I went from a little home-built special to driving a Grand Prix car.
Yeah. Well, so after seeing that first casualty, how soon after again did you race? Like, what were the motions you were going through to be able to jump back behind the wheel? Was it difficult? It must have been.
Well, it's it is difficult. It never leaves you. The tragedy never leaves you. But I mean, I watched the overseas drivers. They'd seen 10 times more of this than I had, and they just got on with the job. And I thought, this is what the scene is. This is what you do. You know, somebody buys it, or as we used to say, he's bought it, and then you jump in your car and you go again. And so I suppose I was a little bit soft in that area. I didn't like the attitude. In fact, when I saw Rocky Chassis killed down at Longford. No, it was Timmy Mayer was killed down at Longford, and they took about an hour to clean up the mess and all that. He was killed instantly. It was a really horrific crash, and I was beside his wife in the pit area, and the look on her face and the tragedy was unbelievable. Yeah. And half an hour later, the track's open and the guys are going at it again. And I thought, I didn't show enough respect for the man who'd just been passed. Yeah. He'd bought it.
Yeah. Seems like, do you think motorsport is a selfish game?
I do. I think it's cruel. It's cruel and it's selfish. Not so much now. I mean, in those days, in the 60s. I'm talking about the 60s. Yeah. You know, now the guys are in carbon monocoques, carbon fibre monocoques, and it's like a safety cocoon. They're strapped in, and even the touring cars, say the V8 supercars, they've got cages and things.
Yeah, motorsport is a lot safer.
It's a lot safer, and they get paid, 100 times more than what we were, or more.
Yeah. Well, mate, you would have paid to be in that seat.
What, in the one I was in?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I didn't, even though it didn't have a seatbelt, it didn't matter.
Mate, the seat was there, that's what mattered.
No, the seatbelt would have been extra, I suppose.
Would you say the stakes are just as high, though, in today?
What do you mean by that?
So they've got all the technology and the roll cages and stuff Spencer was saying, but they're still, I mean, let's look at Ernst Senna, and people are still, unfortunately, buying it, as Spencer was saying. Despite all of that, there's still that driver error. There's still that room for error in race car driving. You know.
Well, that's what makes it so sort of exciting, I guess.
I guess
Well, that's what the crowd want to see. The crowd wants to see an accident. The crowd really, they're there to watch an accident. Or, you know,
I don't think I am.
Hey?
I just like to see wheel-to-wheel action. I don't
Yeah,
like
well,
to see the actor.
I mean, you like to see the art of driving and the art of somebody being able to pass another car.
Yeah, definitely.
And is it the buzz for the race car driver as well? Did you get a buzz when you finished a race? Was it? Did you kind of have this acknowledgement of that was an intense 6 laps or a few hours, and I'm here, I'm still in one piece? Was that something you ever used to sit, pause, and reflect after a race and go, I'm still alive?
Oh no, never, ever did you think I've survived? No.
Why was that?
Because you never ever thought of the danger.
Right. Just box it off.
Yeah, it was blocked out. You didn't
Yeah.
think of the danger.
Yeah, it's
No,
almost
that
like a
was-
skill to do that.
Well, I suppose, I don't know, but I never thought of the danger. Towards the end of my career, I started to see telegraph poles and trees, and I thought, So once you start looking at those things, it's pretty much the end of what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And is that because you started to recognise the danger, or just you just thought, actually, that's my time?
Well, it's a combination of, I don't think anybody makes a decision on one particular point. People arrive at decisions for multiple choices and multiple things that they can see, whether it's money, whether they're moving on, whether what they're doing is finished. But there's always a multiple reasons why you do something.
Yeah.
Well, for me anyway.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of reasons why I wanted to move on. One was I'd seen a lot of people killed, especially my flatmate Bevan Gibson.
Right.
I'd sort of moved on a bit before that, but he was killed in a car I was supposed to drive, and I was lucky not to be in it. So you never think of the danger side of it. That doesn't matter. All you're looking at is not coming second. That's how I always thought of it. I didn't want to come second. I wanted to be right up there.
Yeah.
And, you said when you get out of the car, the elation of you've won, you're the first to see the checkered flag, and you've had a real battle with somebody. That's a big buzz, I can tell you. It's a really, really big buzz to drive a really high-powered car, and to defeat your opponents. That's a great buzz.
So speaking of buzz, what was the most memorable race for you?
Oh, well, that's pretty hard. I've had a lot of tussles, really. I suppose my main opponent was Kevin Bartlett. Kevin had the same sort of cars I had, a Brabham BT11. Kevin was a really good driver, and we both did, I suppose, we raced at a place called Malala in South Australia, and we battled away for a long time, and I eventually got the victory. But then we Bathurst, Kevin and I did the 100-mile-an-hour lap, and Kevin did it first and a couple of tenths quicker, so he got the recognition. But I was happy for him to get it because he went on. I was finished, and he went on. He became the champion in 68, 69, and he went on. So I was happy for him.
Have you got a nemesis of a track? Was there a track that you think, I'd love to go back and just give that another go? Couldn't quite nail it.
Oh no, never had the thing that I couldn't quite nail it. I always reckon I'd nail it pretty good.
Of course. That's why you're sitting here, Spencer.
Is that right? No. I was, it takes a little while to learn a track, but you get the right. But there's no track that I'd like to go to Bathurst and have a run around again, but I'm happy just to go out to Sydney Motorsport Park and have a run around there, and occasionally I'm invited to drive a car just for a bit of fun.
That was a bit of a hint, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Are you free next week? Are you free next weekend, Spencer?
No, Spencer, I'm preparing something for you anyway.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So tell us about your book. You're writing a book?
Yes, I am, yes.
Yeah. So how long did it take to write? It's written, yeah?
No, it's at the printers now, and it's taken taken me nearly 2 years to get it all together and
Yep.
get it to the printer. I did it mainly because I got 4 grandkids, and I really wanted them to know what I have done.
Yeah.
And hopefully it would give them some motivation to know that the mountain I climbed, and so that they give them a bit of encouragement. It started off as a small project, and it just gathered momentum. And I'm even amazed at what I've done myself now. Yeah.
Was it enjoyable going through all of the stories and thinking about all of those good times? And I suppose there would have been some pretty dark times as well, but sort of reflecting on all of those times?
Yes, it has been. I've got Peter Robinson, who's a very well-known journalist, both here and overseas, and he's doing the editing. And Peter and I have had a lot of fun compiling this book, a lot of laughs, and we're both on the same page, so to speak.
Yeah.
And querying one another and laughing. And so it's been a great journey for Peter and I. And I've also had another friend, Dave Williamson. He's done all the photos, and you know, with modern technology, how you can improve photos and things. Well, so Dave and I have had so much fun doing this. So overall, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
A lot of fun and a lot of hard work and a lot of time. And anyway, I think that, well, I'm happy with the result anyway.
And on the photos note, I mean, our generation, we take photos on our phones, you know, probably thousands of times a day. I can imagine some people take photos.
Yes.
We've got some amazing photos of the cars you've raced and the
Yes.
cars that are special to you. How did you get hold of those pictures? Did you have to reach out to old kind of libraries, or how did they all come about?
Well,
Or did you have them yourself?
and I was very fortunate. A lot of the photos were, well, in the old days, they were mainly black and white, of course.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were taken with nowhere near the technology we've got today.
Yeah.
But some of those photos have come up pretty good because the guys who were driving those cameras, they knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
And but a lot of the overseas stuff, I spent 9 years overseas driving Ferraris.
Yep.
And a lot of those photos were by professionals. Yeah.
And this is where we'd encourage people to check out the YouTube channel, because you'll be seeing pictures of those cars throughout the chat.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Well, there's plenty of photos there if they want to have a look at it.
Yeah, of course.
Of course, there's another thing if they want to look up my site, Spencer Martin.
So, what is it? SpencerMartin.com or?
Spencer Martin tapes. Spencer Martin tapes. TAPES.
Okay.
Tapes.
Yeah.
Got a good
And-
YouTube channel. I was checking that out.
Oh, you've seen
I was
that
checking out
already?
the YouTube channel, yeah.
Oh, well, you're ahead of the game. But I've
Again.
I've had that feeling all evening, actually. Sorry, Adrian.
Thanks, mate. Thanks, Spencer.
So on that, because one of the things you said on your Spencer Martin tapes, you're only as good as the car you sit in.
Oh, yes.
And I think that's such a fabulous quote. When you look at race car drivers of today, no matter what, whether it's Formula One, V8s, Le Mans, the GTs, endurance, is that still the same?
Absolutely. You are definitely only as good as the car you sit in. The car, in my opinion, is 80%. The driver is only 20%. And I give a couple of examples of that. Mark Webber in a Minardi. There's no comparison to Mark Webber in a Red Bull. And as Mark himself said, you can't win the Melbourne Cup on a donkey. That's how true is that?
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to throw a curveball in here. The influence of technology in race cars today, is that, if you then look at your 80% cars, 20% driver, where would you then add technology in that? Would you say 80% cars, 10% technology, 10% driver, or are the drivers not becoming more obsolete, but do you not have to be as good as perhaps the older generation of drivers were to handle the cars of now?
The drivers have still got to be good.
Yeah?
Drivers have really, really got to be good.
Okay.
The current Formula One blokes are just astronomical. They're so good.
Yeah.
And the cars are, the cars are just going ahead. I mean, it's, the hybrid things are just amazing, really,
Yeah.
what they're doing.
The speed at
technology.
the speed that those corners come up at.
Corner speed is...
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even from corner to corner,
Yeah.
you know, like you accelerate, there's another corner. Then you barely got time. You got no time to think.
No, aero is such a big thing too.
Oh yeah, that down.
Massive.
Of course.
And of course, well, you got aero, you've got batteries,
Yeah.
hybrid, and all the stuff that goes into it. It's mainly a technology race, but the driver still counts.
Do you like the technology aspect of it now? So it seems like you do. Like you love all like the turbo hybrid era that we're in at the moment. Would you prefer to be racing that sort of era or back in the days of greasy, oily rags?
Oily rags. No, I think I'm very happy to have raced in the era that I did. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, it's the golden era of racing, to be honest.
Yeah, well, in the 60s it was so dangerous. So I think I'm very lucky to be here. We had it all hanging out quite a lot, but it's still quite an art to drive absolutely to drive a Formula One car. I mean, they got so much horsepower compared to what we had, so much technology and so much grip and so much aero. We didn't even know what aero was.
Yeah, there's a lot more factors, like that aerodynamic grip.
Yes.
That when you say that sentence, it doesn't really make sense. You only know mechanical grip. So mechanical grip is tyres, aerodynamic grip is downforce and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's got friction in the air.
So not aware of that back in the 60s. That wasn't even a thing.
It was sort of.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
So when did that start to come in?
Well, I can remember being on the grid down at Sandown Park in a Tasman race and there was all the boys there. It was Jimmy Clark and Danny and Jack and everybody. And I said to Danny, "What are those little flippers on the front of the nose of your car for?" He said, "Oh, Spencer, we're having trouble cooling with the car. It's getting a bit hot." And I thought, "Oh yeah." And then later on, you realise they're getting a little bit of downforce. The little flippers on the nose, and most cars have got it now. You can see.
Yeah, 100%.
They've all got it.
So they're just only for cooling. It's got nothing.
It's curling.
Got nothing to do with handling performance whatsoever.
I would have absolutely believed that as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
Well, back then, if that's the first time you've seen that, you'd be like, "Oh, righto."
Makes sense.
Yeah,
I thought that was a real compliment later when I thought about it.
Yeah.
Danny didn't want to let me into that little trick.
exactly. Yeah. It was scared of you, mate.
Yeah. Oh no. Danny was above me, mate.
So you did. We spoke a little bit more about Le Mans before we jumped on, and I know you didn't race a Le Mans, but you did do a Le Mans start at one of the tracks.
Oh yes, yeah.
How does that? I mean, are you kind of looking to your left and right to see who kind of goes first? Is there a little bit of reverse psychology before they're running into the cars? Because that's quite a spectacle to see. How did you go there?
Well, it was a spectacle. You just know that it was only a spectacle. We did that in historic racing, a few Le Mans starts for the spectators.
Yeah.
To group the old days. And we did that at the Nürburgring and at Magny-Cours in France. We did a Le Mans start.
Yeah.
But the idea was they'd drop the flag, you'd run to your car, Ferrari of course, jump in it and go flat out to the first corner. And whoever got the first corner first, they were the winner actually. And then you slowly drove around the track, back to the start, finish line, and did your belt up while you were going along. Because we had belts by then.
I wondered when you got a chance to do your belt up.
Yeah. And when you got back to the start line, there was always a little bit of time to do those sorts of things anyway. There wasn't no panic.
Yeah.
Do you ever reflect and go, "We were nuts"? when you think about that stuff?
Well, no, in writing this book, I've thought, we weren't nuts. We were doing, everybody that was doing it was so competitive. We were doing what we wanted to do, what we loved doing, and we were just, modifying our cars and going as quick as we could, completely oblivious of the danger.
Yeah.
Well, I was anyway. As I said, I just all the time was looking at the guy in front. I'm going to get him.
Yeah.
That was how it was.
So going back to your book, you mentioned that you've obviously got your grandchildren.
Yeah.
and you mentioned that you want them to read it. What's some of the takeouts that you'd like them to have about your journey or about adapting their life or living their life?
I'm amazed at when I write this book at how much I've done, and they know that I've driven racing cars, but they don't know all the details. And I want them to read this book, most probably in 20 years' time, and look back and say, well, Pop did that, I can do something myself. I know my father, he came up in the horse and cart days, and he wrote a book about all the horses that they had. And I was intrigued by that, and I've read it over and over about the horses and the different characteristics horses had. And hopefully my grandkids will read this book and think, well, Pop did something special.
And I think that's a lovely takeout, by the way. That's beautiful. And I think even just walking around tonight, looking at the Ferraris, I mean, we joked earlier walking around, it's like an evolutionary chart. You know, each prancing horse has a stamp and a timeline. Yeah. And I could imagine actually when you wrote that book and you were looking at photos of those cars, that's a time in your life and an experience and a new circle of friends and a new challenge and a new goal that probably was pretty special.
Absolutely, John. Every time I look at a car, it takes me right back to that car, where I drove it, what happened, and the lead up to the race, and the whole thing all comes back. All the emotion comes back as to where we were, what country we were in. Because I competed overseas for 9 years, and I raced in England, France, Germany, Monaco, Laguna Seca, everywhere.
Yeah.
And I can't even believe that we did all that.
Yeah. Why not?
Well, each race, Kerry Manolis owned the cars, and each race we went overseas. So we go over and back to, all the way to England to compete in a race or whatever.
And how did it work back then in the days? Were there big sponsors like there were today, or was it self-funded? How did the monetary side of things work?
What are sponsors? What are they called? Where do you get them?
Exactly.
No, Kerry was self-funded. He did all of that. In my day, when I was driving for David Mackay, we had Shell. Yep. And my son, he raced Formula Ford. He went very well. He was competitive with Mark Webber. We had McGuigan's Wines. So they were big sponsors for us. Bit of a
Bob
plug,
Jane.
big plug for McGuigan's. They were very good for us.
It's a bit of irony, isn't it? Having a bottle of wine sponsoring a race car driver.
Was that McGuigan's we just had?
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Bob Jane Racing as well?
Yeah, Bob Jane. Well, so when I came to the end of, I thought to myself, I can't press on any further with David Mackay. The money wasn't there, the work was too much, and so I went to the Shell racing manager, who was Archie White. He was the Shell racing manager, and I said to Archie, I'm sorry, but I'm going to leave David. And he said, I really, really don't know how you put up with it for so long. But he said, wherever you go, the sponsorship money goes. So that was a big vote of confidence from Shell and from the top man as well.
Yeah. And how did that make you feel when you're going back to some of the things you raised earlier on about the not getting paid and doing it for the love, realising your value? Did you kind of go, well, I'm off?
I didn't put any value on myself at all, really. I just thought I was a guy looking for a seat.
Yeah.
Yeah, wanted to sit in a fast seat and have a go. And that's what it was. Yeah.
And it's a fine balance between doing it for the love but realising value and actually getting something from it, I found over the years.
Exactly right. Eventually you get to the point where you say, I've done this for so long, I'm just going round and round in circles, and it's time I did something and got a few more coins in my pocket.
Yeah.
It was time. And, as I said, I was going to marry Vicky, and I thought, well, you can't build a house on what I'm getting out of motor racing.
Yeah. You mentioned your son earlier.
Yes.
You actually did a Bathurst race in '93 with each other.
Yes.
Were you co-driving?
Well, it was, there was 3 of us in the car. It was only a bit of fun for me. I just wanted to go to Bathurst with Matthew.
Yeah.
And so we had another guy, David McMillan, who was part of the deal.
Yep.
And so, yeah, that's what we did. We went up there. It was only a 2-litre Corolla, so just to be all together. And we had a lot of fun, actually. It was good. Yeah.
But looking in your eyes, you say it's only a 2-litre Corolla, and then hearing what you said earlier on about coming first, what was the vibe between the 3 of you? Were you like, Matthew, if you let me down, or were you sitting there going, actually,
Matthew,
I hope...
By this stage, Matthew
was he quick? Was he quicker than his old man?
He was quicker than me. He was, yeah, he was quicker than me. And I was happy for him. But he was a current driver, and he was really good. I was proud of the time he did. I was very good.
He's still driving now?
Matthew,
is he still in the game?
No, it's a shame because he was very competitive with Mark Webber.
Yep.
And but anyway, Mark had twice the enthusiasm that my Matthew had. Mark wanted to go racing, and Mark didn't want to have anything to do with anything but Formula One, all the way.
Yeah.
All the way. And it's that sort of determination that got him where he went. I went to Le Mans with him in 1999 when the Mercedes took off and did the full thing.
Yeah, that was down the Mulsanne Straight, wasn't it?
No. It was down the back. Anyway, he took off. And the first time he did a full 360 and landed on its wheels. And it was, the car slithered down and stopped. And the flag marshal said, "Don't park it there, stupid. Bring it in here," because the car was absolutely wrecked.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and he'd hurt his back. So anyway, the next day they put a spare chassis together, and the next day he went out, and he told me, he said, "I changed into 6th gear, and I just moved the air vent a little bit because the air was blowing in my face, and I looked out the windscreen, and the whole sky was blue, and everything went quiet."
You're kidding me.
He went off again.
Yeah, I remember.
It's a pretty impressive video.
Yeah.
I've
seen
seen
it.
Pretty impressive video. Yeah.
That
They changed the guard design after that.
Yeah.
No, they didn't. They finished that program. That car was finished.
Yeah, no. The rules
During
changed.
the race?
Yeah, no. Rules changed after.
Oh, yes, yeah.
They started to put cutouts in the top of the guards and everything.
Oh,
so,
yeah. Well, you see,
So it wasn't big air pockets and.
Yeah.
well, that's what they were doing. They were building air pressure up under the mud guards, and that's what happened to my flatmate Bevan Gibson at Bathurst. The pressure got under the front, and the car took off, and poor Bevan was killed. Yeah.
So speaking of Mark Webber, you've been flown around the world a few times by him. You're quite friendly with the family. Did that come about through Matthew and his racing, or has that come about just through your kind of journey?
No, it was mainly through Mark's father, Alan. Alan and I, we really got on well. We're really good mates right to this day. And you're talking about Mark taking me overseas, eh?
There might have been a hint of a private jet in the video that I watched. Yeah.
No, I'm very
We're
good.
both aspirational, Spencer. We just want to know how we get on one. Maybe we'll do a podcast on a private jet with you. How about that?
Oh, yeah. No, so that was really good. We're moving along. So Mark is retiring, and the last race is in Brazil, and he said, "Well, I don't want to take you to Brazil because people get kidnapped there." So he took us to Austin, Texas, and so he took Matthew and myself and a couple of other people, mainly people from Yellow Pages, who had helped him a lot along the way. And so he flew us to Los Angeles and put us up in a 5-star hotel, and we stayed there for a few days to get over the jet lag. And then he had a mate in Austin who had a private jet, flew across, picked us up, and so we're doing, I don't know, Mac 2 or 3 or some bloody thing, and drinking coffee and eating sandwiches, and it was really, we
Sounds
blown
horrible.
away. It was horrible.
It sounds horrible,
Yeah.
mate.
Anyway, then we went to this bloke's ranch, and Mark and Ann really looked after us. Best seats in the grandstand and
Yeah.
pit tickets, and so that was Mark's way of repaying for what I did for him when he lived at my place, and he paid me 100-fold, really.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier on about the elation when you cross the finish line and when you come off the track and you finish the race. When you stop racing, how did you get that buzz and that elation back? What did you start to do, or did you just let it go?
Well, I just became a money machine. I had to make money.
Yeah.
And I was as competitive doing that as what I was in the car. And,
So you weren't a mechanic anymore then?
no mechanics. Well, anyway, so I suppose moving along, I had the truck, and then I was good mates with Bob Jane, who I'd driven race house for, and I eventually got a Bob Jane T-Mart, and made really good money out of them, and did that. And then I became a golfer, and my brother had a golf driving range, and I eventually owned the golf driving range, and that was a lot of fun too. So the whole story is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Fun.
And that's not a bad story. No. What's your handicap?
Oh, don't talk about it now. I mean, I could hit it at one stage, but it's embarrassing now. But I was talking to the guys at golf on Wednesday. Well, I wasn't there. They rang me up because I've been involved with this book, and they're all sitting around having beers and things, and everybody's handicap's blown out because as you get older, you lose your flexibility and you lose your judgment. But it's still great to go along, and there's 20 or 30 blokes here that really want to see me, and that's good.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. So have you got any learnings from writing this book? Is there anything that kind of came up that you didn't appreciate at the time, or you didn't fully recognise or realise at the time, and you thought, actually, that was a good turning point for me, or that was something, that was an anchor or something?
I know, I can say, really don't do it. I mean, there's so much effort goes into it, but without Peter Robinson and David Williamson, this would never, ever have happened. And of course, another guy who helped me start off was Toby King. It was his idea to do this originally, and then he dropped by the wayside for different reasons. But we've had a lot of fun doing it, but it's very, very time-consuming.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, very time-consuming. And because Peter's so pedantic about everything, the dates, the day, everything's got to be right. So every detail in that book will be correct.
Yeah. Well, you need people like that.
I said to him, do you want to know the bloody tyre pressures in the cars as well?
I don't think you'd have any problem reciting that.
So just to be sure, what were the tyre pressures? So when does the book come out?
We're trying to get it out before Christmas, but I wanted it to be printed in Australia. I didn't want to go to that other country, and so it's printed in Australia by Australians for an Australian.
Yeah,
That's
nice.
how it is. Yeah.
Nice.
So it's costing a little bit more.
Yep.
But I feel very comfortable with it happening that way.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, look, I think we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you very much, Spencer, for spending a bit of time with us.
My pleasure.
Mate,
It's been a pleasure talking to you.
It was
Thank
amazing
you for your
hearing the
time.
stories. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Adrian. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Absolute pleasure to be here.
Thank you.